The Arab Sugar Daddy and the Beautiful Indian Girl. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This is a one-sided love story between a rich old Saudi man and a beautiful poor Indian girl. It was written in English and translated into Arabic by Dr. A. Ahmed. It is a romantic tale that was narrated in 6 books. Book 1. The Arab Sugar Daddy falls in love with a beautiful Indian girl. Copyright. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author except by a reviewer, who may quote brief passages from the review for printing in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. All characters in this novel are fictitious and any resemblance to real people, living or dead, is merely coincidental. Chapter 23. The Second Chance in Luck. Despite what had happened, the beautiful Indian Muslim maidservant Rayhana Khan never forgot her sugar daddy, the old Arab man who gave her the life's important opportunity which could be fulfilled by her flying to Saudi Arabia and working in his palace. After her release, she took her mother and returned to the police station where she was detained on the day of her unlawful arrest and asked for the return of her visas, tickets, passports, and money. The appalled Hindu police inspector Shankaracharya who arrested her became hostile and shouted that he would arrest her and her mother if she did not leave and it would be better for her never to see his face again. Rayhana no longer has a lawyer to represent her in court or file a formal complaint to regain what is rightfully hers. There is no one to fight for her rights against the ruthless, illegal system of evil. When the unscrupulous lawman did not return her travel papers, she concluded that her chance to go to the rich country of the Arabs is gone forever. After losing hope, the Indian maid Rayhana returned to the homes of the rich and began working for them again, enslaving herself for long hours during the day and part of the night. Some families refused to give her work again due to her involvement in an alleged terrorist plot. During her long working hours, Rayhana always remembers her handsome boyfriend Jamal Khan. She wondered if he was willing to accept her as a lover again after all the trouble he had gone through because of her. She believed that his only sin was his love for her, which is why he was arrested and imprisoned for helping her in her desire for a better life in a rich Arab country. She also doesn't expect the travel agency that prepared her papers to be interested in helping her again. She also concludes that the old Saudi man who freely gave her visas and tickets to heaven probably isn't interested in having her as a servant in his palace anymore. She believes she has given him so much trouble that he will never want to see an Indian woman again or step foot on the ground she walked on. She used to see him every now and then whenever there was a criminal court hearing with the other Indian suspects. It was several weeks after Rayhana Khan was released from prison and allowed to return to her slum hut. She wakes up every day at 5 in the morning, goes to work in the homes of rich people, and does not return to her poor neighborhood until 9 in the evening. She forbade her children from going to train stations and local streets to beg. Her daughter Ifit once again became her 5 younger siblings' babysitter, cooking their food and washing their clothes. The same sad and evil daily life that she had in her previous days repeats itself day after day. She felt cursed and condemned to a life of abject poverty from the day she was born. However, one day, the sad maid returned at 9 o'clock in the evening and found a visitor waiting for her in front of her poor hut. He was the last person on earth she thought she would see again. She doesn't know his name. She doesn't know how to speak his language and has no idea what language he speaks. He is called the damned black nigger, the one-eyed Sudanese boy, Babakar. How did he know where she lived? How could he, with his height and huge body, walk in those narrow lanes and poor, horrific huts? At first, the maid Rayhana became afraid of him and did not want to shake his hand when he extended his rough black hand to her. She kept herself at a safe distance from him and continued to stare at him as if he was a dangerous alien from another planet who was about to attack and rape her in front of everyone. Many poor Indians had already gathered around him and looked at him as if he were a frightening wild animal emerging from the jungle. Some of these poor shanty dwellers had never seen a black person before. Rayhana doesn't expect him to speak her language either. However, her curiosity tripled when she started hearing him speaking to her in broken Hindi. With great difficulty, she understood some of what he was saying. She had understood the words, visas, tickets, the old man, and Saudi Arabia. She even heard him mention the word Indian passport. Despite this, Rayhana does not trust him, thinking that he is trying to take her somewhere alone and rape her. The black color of his skin and his strange African features made her distrust him even more. Many Indians believe that the African man is a sex maniac or a wild animal who has no control over his sexual drive and will attack and rape any female who comes near him. Some of them believe that every second a black man feels sexual desire or gets wild sexual excitement and can have sex with 20 women at the same time. Therefore, he is a person with a lot of lust and animalistic sexual desire and is always looking for some sexual satisfaction. He is a pedophile who loves to have sex with underage males and females, bestiality with animals, and even necrophilia with dead women after exhuming their bodies from their graves. The African boy repeated each sentence he spoke 10 times before Rayhana could understand what he was saying. What she understood was that he wanted to give her the same travel papers she used to have and help her fly to Saudi Arabia and work as a maidservant with a kind old man who met her in Colaba and decided to help her to come to his country. Although she is still extremely afraid of him, she realizes he is the only person who has thought of her and has come to look for her and offer her the same life opportunity of traveling to a petrodollar country where she is going to be a rich woman. Then, she and her family would live a better life. Neither her lover Jamal Khan nor the owner of the travel agency has come to look for her and offer her another chance at anything. Still, she is afraid to be alone with this black man whom she barely knew. But after much hesitation, Rayhana agreed to take the risk and meet the Sudanese boy on the following day at the bus stop that was not far from her slum. Babakar told her to meet him at 10 o'clock in the morning and not to bring anyone with her. Rayhana refused his suggestion and told him she could not come alone and insisted she had to bring her little daughter with her. She believes if this black man jumps on her and tries to rape her in broad daylight, then her little daughter might either scream and call people to come and beat him up and rescue her mom. She might also run away and find a policeman and report the assault and rape of her defenseless mother. The so-called dangerous sexual pervert black man unwillingly accepted her condition and then said his goodbye and left. More than 30 emaciated kids and 20 hungry dogs followed behind him. That particular night, all the poor people in the tight-knit slum huts community have collectively manufactured up their usual run of back alley gossip. The black Negro boy has come to ask the beautiful widow Rayhana Khan for sex. With the help of the same wicked Muslim and most holy policewoman of Allah, everyone's opinion of Rayhana evolved around her having sex on the street like a bitch with many dogs. Now this sex-deviant black African man showing up at her slum hut has confirmed their nasty rumors and opinions once again. It is worth repeating that many Indians think Africans are extremely dangerous men and are notorious sex fiends and dangerous sex perverts. Therefore, any Indian girl who has been seen walking anywhere in a public place with a black man in India is considered a prostitute. Well, let us not dwell for now in trying to analyze and refute these erroneous and racially biased preconceptions, but let us continue with the plans of Rayhana and Babakar to meet on the next day. When Rayhana met Babakar the following morning, he took her to a restaurant and talked with her for a long time, being repetitive in his long rehearsed Hindi. With quite some difficulty, he tried to communicate to her that the same old Saudi man who had provided her before with tickets and visas to Saudi Arabia is still interested in giving her work as a maidservant in his rich country. Babakar told her that the old Saudi wanted to know whether she was still interested in coming to his country and being his Muslim maidservant. Before answering, Rayhana asked Babakar to tell her where the old man was. He told her about the old Saudi after his release had gone back to his country. But then a week ago, he phoned him in his hostel and requested he finds her and tell her his offer still stands and the job is still hers if she wants it. The African boy also told the lovely maidservant it took him a full week to find her slum hut. Rayhana then gladly accepted the offer on the same condition she had made previously, that she would need her 7-year-old daughter if it to come with her also to Saudi Arabia. The African boy promised the lost and found lovely Indian Layla he would advise her Arab sponsor, the madman Kais, about her desire to bring her small daughter with her. That day the Sudanese boy did not allow the lovely poor woman and her small, cute daughter to go until they agreed to have a tasty meal with him at the restaurant. Then, he asked Rayhana to meet him again in a week at the same restaurant and at the same time. He said he was going to contact her benefactor through the phone and inform him about her consent and demand, and at the end of 1 week, he would let her know his reply. Before we go any further, 2 important things need to be mentioned right away. Firstly, Babakar was kicked out of the travel agency by Muhammad Khan's wife, who took over the business while her husband was in jail. It was her wicked husband. While he was suffering behind bars, he asked his wife when she came to visit him in his dungeon to kick out this so-called fucking black Negro. What is more, the number of employees has been reduced to 5. Muhammad's wife also fired 2 girls without giving them any reason for their being fired. The other employees could see why his wife had fired the beautiful Bulbula Sheikh and the sexy girl Tabassum Sirajuddin. They are 2 exceptionally beautiful girls and stiff competition for her husband's sexual pleasures. Although the not good-looking Mrs. Khan pretends to run the office and be the female boss, the main person running the business is the envious girl Roxana Rahman. Of course, the wife did not kick out her ugly younger sister, the mean girl Jamila. Secondly, after his release from jail, Jamal Khan wanted to return to his work at Muhammad Tours and Travels, but under the order of his detained boss Mr. Muhammad Khan, the ugly wife refused to hire him again. The evil boss said to his wife, Jamal had committed a conflict of interest by falling in love with the maidservant. He was fired and told he was not entitled to receive any severance pay or benefits. Next, we need to mention quickly that after the trial was over, Sheikh Firoz bin Ahmed returned to his country and swore by his Allah that his feet would never again touch the dirty soil of the land of the infidels and accursed Hindu idol worshippers. He began to hate Hindus with a passion because the police inspector who tortured him during his interrogation was a Hindu. He came to know about his religious affiliation by his last name, Shankaracharya. He understood that Shankar is one of the Hindu gods. Although he now hates Hindus, Hindustan, and all Indians, the Arab Kais has never forgotten about his beautiful Indian Layla, and he is determined to get her by all means, even if it cost him his life. He has no one to trust in India anymore except his old friend, Babakar Aliawar. After he came out of the hospital, he phoned his Sudanese friend and apologized to him for the misunderstanding that terminated their long friendship. The old geezer knew it was Babakar who had left him in his difficult time by refusing to help him escape from India through the Pakistani border. Because he needs him, the old man ignored that small mistake of his friend and decided to use him to find his lovely Layla and send her over to him in his kingdom of Tartarus. By the way, as soon as he got released from the Indian dungeon, the Arab sheikh returned to his homeland and went directly from the airport to the King Fahd Royal Hospital. He was exhausted from the long trial and the difficult time he spent in the filthiest prison in the whole world. He had been treated off and on by the brutal beatings he received in jail and the hundreds of ailments and infections he contracted while there. It is also worth mentioning that Babakar suffered a lot after he got fired from his job. His financial struggles started all over again, and ever since he got fired, he has been having an exceedingly difficult time. Again, he began to depend upon his Sudanese friends to help him out, and they were not happy about his never-ending penniless condition. After his ever-mercurial rich friend called him and apologized for all the misunderstandings, some hope shone in his life once more. Sheikh Ahmed promised to send him some money regularly if he managed to find his beautiful Indian Layla, who is called Rayhana Khan, and get her travel papers reissued over again so she could come to his mansion and work for him as his adored maidservant. The old Saudi swore by Allah he would send him 15,000 rupees to start with as a token of goodwill. He said to Babakar, the much-needed lovely Indian Layla was worth the money and expense, and he requested her services as quickly as possible. He would take care of everything and all the costs of preparing her papers and documents. This time he said to Babakar that he did not want any filthy Indian Muslim to prepare her travel papers. He specifically mentioned them each by their names, namely Muhammad Khan and Jamal Khan. He told Babakar that neither of them should know of these new arrangements for his precious maidservant Rayhana to fly to the kingdom of the Saudis. After some days had passed, Babakar was able to locate the slum hut of Rayhana Khan, and he called Sheikh Ahmed and presented him with the good news. To be extolled for his efforts and make Sheikh Ahmed feel overly indebted to him, Babakar recounted for him all the troubles he went through to locate his maidservant. He mentioned how he had to use Gondas to help him in locating her slum hut. As a matter of fact, Babakar would never have found Rayhana Khan if he did not get the assistance of an Indian because of his poor Hindi language skills and his African ethnicity. He sought the help of a lawman to locate the slum hut of Rayhana. He bribed a Muslim police constable and asked him to direct him to the place of the young Muslim woman who was falsely accused of the recent terrorist plot. His given reason is that he is a foreign reporter from a Muslim country and wanted to have an interview with her for a cover story for a news article. He said further to receive sympathy from the Muslim constable that the mission of the article was to show to the outside world, especially the Muslim world, how the uncircumcised infidels in the nation of India wrongly accused an innocent, peace-loving, and law-abiding poor Muslim woman. The Muslim constable, being moved by his love of Allah's chosen people, believed in Babakar's claim and promised to help him in finding Rayhana Khan. After 1 week of searching, the constable found out where the former suspected female suicide bomber Rayhana Khan is living, and he then took Babakar to her slum hut. Babakar thanked him, gave him some money, and asked him to leave. The reason was that he did not want Rayhana and her family to see him coming to their hut with a policeman. Sheikh Ahmed praised Babakar over and over, and he almost started crying. He then told him he would be sending the work visa and ticket for Rayhana and the 15,000 rupees he promised to give him as a token of goodwill. Then the African boy mentioned the important demand of Rayhana before she would travel to work as his maidservant. The old man immediately agreed and said, "Bringing her daughter with her will be an additional blessing to me from the exalted Allah and our gracious Prophet." Babakar did not suspect any ulterior motives on the part of his Saudi friend when in his dirty mind the old geezer praised his Allah and his Prophet for the coming of Rayhana's 7-year-old daughter, that he thought it might become like a paradise for him and hell for her. Chapter 24. Searching for the handsome lover. Through Western Union, Sheikh Ahmed sent 25,000 Indian rupees to Babakar and asked him to give 10,000 to Rayhana and keep the rest of the amount for himself due to his great efforts in finding her. He sent between 50 and 70,000 rupees every month to his former Indian wife, Christy. But his sad end with that beautiful Christian wife taught him a good lesson in life. Therefore, he decided not to spend a lot of money on the beautiful new Muslim Layla while she was in the land of infidels outside Islamic law. This secular law gives a wife the right to divorce her husband without any specific reason, and she is allowed to cheat on him openly without fear of being caught, convicted, and stoned to death with her adulterous boyfriend. However, a week later, Babakar met Rayhana again in the same restaurant where they had sat and talked before. He informed her that her Saudi sponsor had agreed to send her a new work visa and travel tickets for her and her daughter. He also told her that her sponsor had sent money so she could use it to obtain new passports. He explained to her that Sheikh Ahmed had informed him that Rayhana's former passport had been stolen by the corrupt counter-terrorism police in Bombay at the time of her arrest and sold to another Indian woman. That woman came to Jeddah International Airport and claimed to be Rayhana Khan. She was arrested by Jeddah police and confessed how she obtained Rayhana's passport, work visa, and ticket. The Saudi police considered the passport an invalid document due to forgery and sent it to the Indian consulate in Jeddah. For this reason, the real maid Rayhana Khan needs to reissue her passport with the correct ID. Regarding her daughter's passport, the African boy advised Rayhana not to go to the police to try to get her child's passport back because the police would either arrest her again or try to blackmail her, rape her, and take her money as well. After that, Babakar took out the 10,000 rupees from his pocket and gave it to her. Rayhana had never seen such a large amount of money before. The largest amount of money she had ever received in her entire life was about 400 rupees. As a result, She is simply amazed and delighted at the same time. She thanked the Sudanese boy more than she thanked her Saudi sponsor, as if Babakar was the one who personally provided her with this huge sum. She told him that she needed someone to go with her to the passport office in Worli. Before Babakar could respond, she said that tomorrow she would go to the travel agency and ask the good boy Jamal Khan to take her to the passport office because he was the one who had helped her before. "Don't make that mistake again," Babakar shouted, until Rayhana jumped back. She thought the black guy had suddenly become a dangerous monster and wanted to attack and rape her. But before she could stand up and run away from him, Babakar spoke again. "Your sponsor has asked me to tell you never to go to Muhammad Khan tours and travels again. Moreover, Jamal Khan no longer works with them. Mr. Muhammad Khan's wife kicked him out. As for me, I don't work there anymore. I was also fired for no specific reason." The beautiful, beloved Rayhana felt great sadness in her heart when she learned that her handsome lover, Jamal, no longer worked at the travel agency. The African boy, Babakar, also stated to her that her sponsor had asked him alone to help her prepare all the necessary papers for her travel abroad, and that this entire responsibility was now in his hands. So, he asked her to meet him the next day at the same restaurant so he could take her to the passport office. Rayhana is not happy with the new arrangements, but she has no choice in the matter, so she agrees to meet her new assistant. The good Sudanese boy once again insisted that the beautiful Indian woman and her cute daughter should share the delicious food with him before they left. He also ordered some ready-made sandwiches and asked her to take them to her 5 children and her old mother. Babakar learned about Rayhana's other children from his surprise nighttime visit to her small shack in the Dharavi slum. Before returning to her poor hut, the caring mother Rayhana went to a small market and bought clothes, cookies, and candies for her 5 children. She also bought some dresses for her mother and daughter. This is the first time in her life that she has been able to buy new clothes for her family. Before that day, she would bring her children handmade clothes from whatever their employers no longer wanted. Oftentimes, clothes were either too big or too small for their children, but poor people cannot be picky. However, on this day, thanks to her Arab sponsor Sugar Daddy, she chose the exact size for each of her children. She bought 4 beautiful dresses and 2 Barbie dolls for her beloved daughter as well. Because of the huge heavenly manna she received through Babakar, she went and called her employers and asked for indefinite leave. Some employers threatened to fire her if she did not show up for work. She didn't care and hung up the phone on them. She returned to her poor hut and fed her children with sandwiches that Babakar had bought for them. Then she showed them the beautiful new clothes she had bought for them with her own money. Finally, she opened the boxes of candies and biscuits and her children jumped for joy and said, "Mama, you are the best mother in the whole world." While her children were still eating their sweets, Rayhana lied to her mother and daughter and told them that she would go to work in the homes of wealthy people. She did not tell her mother about the large amount of money she received from her wealthy Arab sponsor. She just took off and promised to return late in the evening. The beautiful Rayhana Khan is eager to reconnect with her handsome lover Jamal Khan and enjoy the same wonderful times they had together in downtown Bombay. She didn't believe the black boy when he told her that employee Jamal had been fired from his workplace and decided to find out for herself. She misses those loving, fun moments of hugs and warm, tender kisses. Despite everything she endured over the past 7 months, what she suffered even more was the loss of her handsome boyfriend, Jamal Khan. She realized that he had suffered greatly because of her and wanted to apologize for his suffering because of a crime he had not committed either. This time her financial circumstances are different and she will show him her deep love by letting her money do the talking. When Rayhana arrived in Colaba, it was 3:15 p.m. She doesn't have a watch. She asked someone for the time. She remembered Jamal telling her that he finishes work every day at 5 in the evening. According to her calculations, she had about an hour and a half to wait for him to appear. After that, she will be able to see her handsome lover leaving his office and heading home. She wants to surprise him. The beautiful Rayhana thought that the one-eyed black Negro had deliberately lied to her. She also suspected that her old Arab sponsor knew about the love affair she had with Jamal and decided to separate them. Somehow, it never occurred to her to ask herself why the black boy didn't want her to meet Jamal Khan or why the old Saudi wanted to keep them apart. Rayhana waited impatiently across the street, under the shade of a large tree. She doesn't want anyone from the travel agency where her boyfriend works to see her. She plans to follow her lover from behind without him knowing until there is enough distance between them, and then she will approach him, put her hands on his face, close his eyes, and give him the biggest, pleasant surprise of his life. The minutes seemed like hours, and her heart became so anxious for him that she began to walk up and down the street, stopping now and then to glance at the office door. Whenever she looked, she saw the doorman sitting on a wooden chair like an angel of death, holding a double-edged sword in his hand, guarding Heaven's Gate with a blank stare, stupidly watching the people and cars passing by. His little head swayed back and forth in a semicircle like a table fan. The beautiful girlfriend, Rayhana Khan, tends to approach him and asks him to enter the office and ask her handsome lover Jamal Khan to come out, but she has a nagging feeling that this might jeopardize his job with his evil boss. Finally, Rayhana saw the travel agency employees starting to leave one by one. She got to know most of them except for two new pretty girls. These two new girls were recruited by the lustful boss Muhammad Khan himself after his release from the bottomless pit of prison. He was very angry with his jealous and ugly wife when he discovered that in his absence she had fired his favorite employee, the beautiful and sexy girl Bulbula. The beautiful Rayhana couldn't see the handsome Jamal Khan among the staff, and the only man who appeared at the entrance was someone else. She remembered that she had seen that young man before, but she did not know his name. His name is Javed, and he is the only remaining male employee. Rayhana's heart began to beat in fear when she saw the 6 Indian girls and the Indian employee all walking out of the office and quickly blending into the crowded rush-hour crowd. She waited for her beloved Jamal to come out, but he didn't. A few minutes later, she saw Satan in the form of Muhammad Khan, the owner of the travel agency, sticking out his bald head as if he has 2 horns. He stood and spoke to the doorman before walking away and disappearing as well. By this time, the beautiful Rayhana had become so frustrated and her heart had started beating so hard inside her that she thought it would definitely jump out of her chest. At this moment, she felt like she had lost her love forever. This is the only paradise where she found him and knows that she must look for him, and this is his only place of work. When they met more than 7 months ago, he asked her to send him letters from Saudi Arabia to his work address. Her lover never took her to his place of residence. Rayhana's tears fell like the gates of heaven when she realized that she had lost her handsome lover forever. She has no other way to contact or find him. As her tears ran like a river down her cheeks, an idea flashed into her mind. She crossed the street and went straight to the doorman. He has just finished closing all the doors and is about to leave. Rayhana approached him and asked him about the young employee who was working there called Jamal Khan. The doorman recognized her immediately because he had seen her before many months ago, and through the many court sessions he had been accustomed to seeing her in handcuffs in the Bombay Criminal Court. He had heard from other female employees that the Indian employee, Jamal Khan, was expelled from the agency because he was having a love affair with her, and this was considered by the boss Muhammad Khan to be a conflict of interest at work and an unforgivable crime. "He doesn't work here anymore," the janitor replied sarcastically. Rayhana asked him to tell her the name and address of his new workplace. The janitor looked at her and said angrily, "How do I know his new place of work?" Rayhana, "When did Jamal stop coming to work?" Doorman, "He stopped coming when he got fired." Rayhana, "Why was he fired?" Doorman, "I heard the girls in the office saying that he was fired because he went to prison." The janitor intentionally lied to her about why Jamal Khan was fired from his job. Rayhana became very angry and said to him, "Even the employer went to prison on the same false charge." The doorman looked at her for a while before turning his back and walking away. Standing there alone, Rayhana felt as if she had been thrown onto a deserted island to live the rest of her life alone. She knew that no one else would fill the aching void in her heart the way her handsome lover Jamal did. She missed his love so much during her imprisonment. When she was acquitted of all false charges and released from prison, it was the needs of her children that distracted her from her immediate romantic desires. Inside, she was always waiting for the day when she could reunite with him and resume their wonderful love that had been interrupted for so long by their imprisonment. She now had enough money to take care of some of her family's needs, so she didn't have to worry too much about it. Now, love came aside, knocking on the door of her heart, and she could not ignore the desire to open the door and welcome it with all her being. But her handsome lover is not there, and she has no way to find his whereabouts, where he lives or where he works. How could she find one person among 19 million others in a huge cosmopolitan city like Bombay? Rayhana's feet became as lifeless as the concrete asphalt street on which she was standing, and she now walked aimlessly, her tears obscuring her vision. She stumbled and collided with a few people who became angry and shouted at her and asked her to watch where she was going. She almost fell off the sidewalk when a kind woman caught her just in time by the shoulders and prevented her from falling off the sidewalk. The kind woman asked her if she was okay and told her to try to be careful where she walked. She then warned her that if she fell into such a crowded place, she would be trampled under thousands of feet and die a horrific death in the stampede. No one would know she is dead because those who would trample her with thousands of feet leave their workplaces in a hurry and rush to catch local trains to return home. Fortunately, Rayhana listened to the good advice of the kind lady and started walking with great care. It took her 3 hours to return to the Dharavi slum where she lives. Her heart is heavy with sadness because she lost the love of her life. A few weeks after her papers are reissued, she will travel by plane to the rich Arab country, and with her work visa, she will be away for 2 long years. She will not be able to send messages to her lover because she does not know his new address, place of work, or place of residence. That night, the beloved Rayhana could not sleep and stayed awake all night, mourning the loss of her beloved Jamal, while her tears fell like heavy raindrops on her empty pillow. Chapter 25. Continuing the meticulous search for the missing lover. The next day, early in the morning, Rayhana forced her exhausted body to get out of bed and get dressed. She went to the restaurant where the black Negro boy asked her to meet him. When Babakar saw her coming towards him, he thought she had lost one of her children and had been crying all night. It seems like something drastic happened overnight. She was no longer smiling as she had been the day before, and she was no longer the same simple, innocent, beautiful woman he had known. She looked very sad or sick, as if she was going to die at any moment. Babakar welcomed her and tried to find out what happened, but she remained calm. She's not in the mood to talk about anything. The young African man decided not to put any more pressure on her for fear that she would burst into tears at any moment. He just asked her to come with him to the passport office. She stood up and followed him silently as if he was leading her to a funeral procession to bury her handsome, deceased lover, Jamal Khan. At the passport office, Babakar claimed that Rayhana was one of his clients and that he wanted to reissue her passport. He knows all about the procedures from his previous work in the travel agency of Muhammad Khan. Before they arrived at the passport office, he convinced Rayhana to say that her passport and her daughter's passport had been stolen while they were heading to the international airport. They probably lost them in the taxi that took them to the airport. Normally, when someone claims that his passport has been stolen, he must bring an official letter from the police authority stating that he has filed a complaint. However, this procedure was not required of Rayhana and her daughter because the smart Sudanese foreign student had already entered 500 rupees in each application. In this particular case, the legal requirement was waived. The person accepting the application looked at Rayhana familiarly, but couldn't place her face among the hundreds of applicants he saw every day. They were told that it would take 3 months for their applications to be processed and their passports reissued. Those 3 months were reduced to 3 weeks when Babakar took out a few thousand rupees from his pocket and placed them under the 2 applications. After that, he tried to reduce the period to a week, but the passport officer said that this was not possible. The African boy carelessly spends on applications to reissue the two lost passports because the old Saudi man tells him no matter how much he spends on the travel papers for his valuable Indian maid and her cute daughter, he will make up for it. Babakar and Rayhana were about to leave the office, but the passport officer stopped them and asked the mother, "Did you change your address, or is it the same as it was before?" Rayhana looked at the Sudanese boy and said, "I don't have an address." The officer raised his eyebrows with a serious look and asked, "How did you get a passport without an address?" Rayhana replied, "I live in a poor hut. We have no addresses in those poor huts." The officer replied, "Then how did you get a passport before?" "A passport cannot be issued without an address." The Sudanese boy felt a snake in the bush, so he tried to stop any further inquiry about her address. He fears Rayhana and her daughter's passports will not be reissued if they cannot show how she obtained the passports in the first place. He understood that Sheikh Ahmed might kill him if his Indian maid, the beautiful Layla, was prevented from coming to him for something as small as an address. So, he said calmly, "Sir, the last time their passports were most likely issued with the address of the travel agency listed. Can you check her previous applications?" "But what is the name of that travel agency?" "Muhammad Khan Tourism and Travel." The Sudanese boy accidentally shot himself in the foot when he mentioned the name of the damned travel agency Muhammad Khan Tours and Travel of his evil former boss. The passport officer immediately remembered that Rayhana Khan had come before with an employee of that agency and had obtained. It took the passport officer 20 minutes to find the old papers for the mother and her daughter of it. Then he came and shouted at Rayhana, "Why did you say you don't have an address? This is the address you wrote last time. It is an address in a slum house in Andheri Lokhandwala Chawl." When the passport officer mentioned this address to her dear lover, Jamal Khan, the beautiful beloved, Rayhana Khan, lit up like a Christmas tree in the month of December. Suddenly, a switch lit a fire in her dying heart. The light of love illuminated her eyes, and she became as beautiful and sexy as before. Her wounded heart was now filled with intense joy at the prospect of finding her lost, handsome lover. God opened doors for her where they were closed. "Oh my God," she exclaimed with joy, "I forgot that I had previously given the address of my cousin Jamal, who lives in the huts of Andheri Lokhandwala Chawl." The officer said seriously, "So, this is your address?" Rayhana, "Yes, sir. This is my permanent address." Before the passport officer asked her about anything else and spoiled the happiness that had bubbled up like a fountain of erotic love inside her heart, Rayhana asked him to write the address of her handsome cousin, Jamal Khan, on a piece of paper so that she could tell him when her and her daughter's passports would arrive, so that he can expect the passports to arrive at his home from the passport office. The passport officer wrote down her lover's address and gave it to her. If it weren't for the people standing around her, Rayhana would have kissed the paper and hugged it tightly to her chest before hiding it inside her bra between her breasts, which looked like two large pomegranates. She does not have a handbag or purse and keeps her valuables inside her bra. She could not hide her happiness and joy and shone at the Sudanese boy with a wide smile and winked at him with her beautiful black eyes. She also bit her white teeth on her sexy lower lip and slowly released it. The young black Negro, Babakar Alayawar, was surprised and greatly surprised by her sudden change in mood and her flirtatious movements. He suddenly thought that the very beautiful Indian maid Rayhana had fallen in love with him and realized how much she needed him to hold her in his arms and kiss her lips. Finally, she appreciates him as a man of worth and expresses her strong emotional alertness towards him with her beautiful eyes and sexy lips. The so-called African Negro felt as if he were the hero, the black slave, Antar ibn Shaddad, and Rayhana was the beautiful white Arab girl whose lover wrote about her, one of the 7 renowned poems known as Mu'allaqat of Antar. He even felt a powerful erection and his cock was flying like a Ramadan cannon when he pictured himself having sex in bed with her sexy body and enjoying her tight pussy, her big breasts, and her large naked buttocks. He also expressed the possibility of meeting her on the shore of the Arabian Sea on Marine Drive, on the Queen's Necklace, and kissing her on the lips. One-eyed Babikar recalled seeing her several times while her handsome Indian lover, Jamal Khan, was hugging and kissing her. The brown-eyed African lover, Babakar Alayawar, may not hesitate for a moment to get rid of his ugly girlfriend, Jamila, if his new, beautiful, and sexy lover, Rayhana, agrees to start a love relationship with him. She looks a million times more beautiful than the ugly Indian girl Jamila whom he loves, but who does not love him. This beautiful and gorgeous Indian girl like Rayhana in his country will be deified by people as the Greek goddess Aphrodite and worshipped as the goddess of love and beauty, Helen, the beloved of Paris. The imaginary two new lovers then walked out of the passport office where they were supposed to say goodbye to each other, but first, they had to discuss the day they would meet again 3 weeks later and after their passports arrived in the mail at her cousin Jamal Khan's address. But the beautiful Rayhana just left and almost flew in the air without thanking the African Babakar or saying goodbye to him. The black Sudanese boy was upset by her rude behavior towards him and her lack of manners. He immediately jumped to the conclusion that she was biased against him because of his black skin color, and he felt very angry after everything he did to help her, even by bribing the passport officer with his share of the money he got from her Arab sponsor, Sheikh Faiz bin Ahmed. His dignity was shattered to pieces, and his hope of meeting her again and kissing her on the lips on the seashore was dashed. He hopes to fuck her sexy body on the bed. So, his wounded pride drove him to yell at her before she could get any further. Why are you running away like that without saying thank you or goodbye? Do you think that I am your servant who must do your work whether I like it or not? I'm so sorry, my dear brother. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but I'm in a hurry to get back to the kids. I am very sorry that I left without thanking you or saying goodbye. Please forgive me, brother. I am so grateful to you for everything you did to help me. You are an exceptionally good boy. Well, that sweet apology made me feel good. Anyway, we have to meet again to make your overseas flight booking to Saudi Arabia. I can book your flight with your daughter before you get your passports. If you want me to do that, I need to see you in 2 days. Will you be able to meet me in 2 days at the same restaurant at the same time? Yes, of course, I can do that. I will meet you in 2 days at the same Indian restaurant where you served me delicious meals with my beloved daughter Ifit and also bought sandwiches for my dear 5 sons. Rayhana mentioned the food he bought for her and her children because she wanted to make him happy and make him forgive her for hurting his feelings. Then she waited for Babakar to speak further, but when she saw him turn his face in the opposite direction and begin to walk away, she felt free to set out to carry out the plan of finding the love she missed so much. She will not prevent her handsome lover, Jamal, even if he wants to kiss her in an open place in front of his doorstep. She believes that she is the private property of her handsome Jamal and that he has the right to do whatever he wants with her body. With a joyful heart and great expectations, Rayhana flew to Andheri area and ended up in Lokhandwala Chawl where the street and address of her lover were listed on a small white sheet of paper kept safely inside her bra between her breasts. The complex of Lokhandwala is the most beautiful and expensive shopping center in Bombay. Only Bollywood film stars and wealthy Indians can shop there. However, there are millions of slum huts everywhere surrounding the metropolis except downtown Bombay and a few other local areas like Colaba, Churchgate, Nariman Point, Cave Parade, Malabar Hills, etc. The beautiful complex of Lokhandwala was surrounded by millions of dirty and poor huts like a rainbow around the sun. Jamal Khan's address indicated that his small hut was buried somewhere behind the beautiful buildings of the Lokhandwala complex. Rayhana asked several destitute people to show her directions to the place written on a piece of paper as she made her way through the crowded huts. Finally, her legs took her to her lover's chawl hut. It took her an hour and a half to travel by bus, local train, and auto rickshaw until she reached her real man's hut. Before she received the 10,000 rupees from her rich old Arab sponsor Sugar Daddy, the Indian maid Rayhana Khan rarely sat in an auto rickshaw. An auto rickshaw is something between a taxi and transporting domestic animals such as donkeys and horses. There are 2 types of rickshaws in India, motor rickshaws and wheel rickshaws. The first rickshaw was a motorbike converted into a mini taxi. The second rickshaw is a tricycle that is designed and used for transportation. In China, there is something worse than that called human rickshaw. It is a human being transformed into an animal and used by the rich to carry them from one place to another, a form of abuse and slavery of humans. The delightful, beloved Rayhana felt extremely happy and had an orgasm, despite her fatigue from the long journey. Her long, smooth legs finally reached her lover's doorstep. Jamal had already informed her that he had 3 sisters and 6 brothers in addition to his sick mother. All his 9 siblings are younger than him. Rayhana expected that one of his 3 sisters or 6 brothers would open the door for her and greet her with the Islamic greeting, "Peace be upon you," and then she will ask her or him to call and summon her lover, Jamal Khan. She knocked on the door of the little hut with her hand and waited. While she waited, she was surrounded by 6 stray dogs and 15 miserable children. The children were extremely dirty and smelled of urine and feces, smelling worse than the smell of the hungry, skinny animals around them, and they appeared to her like wretches in their dirty rags and emaciated bodies. They looked like they were playing in the mud and dirt and swimming in the gutter, and then were allowed out of the filth to wander the streets. It is a wonder that they are still alive. The fat woman's mouth is full of Indian pan. Her big mouth is full of those green and red leaves of the tobacco, and she can hardly speak. The visitor, Rayhana, politely asked the woman, "I am looking for Mr. Jamal Khan." The fat woman had to spit out the red pan from her mouth, which looked like vomit or a dirty diaper. Some of it fell on Rayhana's shoe, turning her shoe red from the spit. One of the famous Egyptian journalists visited India, and when he saw Indians chewing and spitting the pan everywhere without caring where it landed, he described them as the people who menstruate from their mouths. "Who is Jamal Khan?" The woman screamed after she was able to open her mouth and speak. "My friend Jamal Khan gave me this address and asked me to come and meet his sisters and mother. There is no one named Jamal Khan living here in this hut." The fat woman continued in a louder voice like the voice of an angry ogre, "We are Hindus and no Muslims live with us." The short man behind her came out and said to Rayhana, "Do you mean the Muslim family that used to live here?" Before the beautiful visitor, Rayhana, could answer his question, he continued the conversation with a voice like a dog howling on a dark night. "The Muhammadan Khan family sold their hut to us last year and moved to some slum area in Mumbai. We do not know about their new location." Habiba Rayhana listened to those words that came out of his mouth as if they were poisonous arrows that flew and pierced her heart. Each word, one after another, shot out like an arrow, hitting and penetrating her depths, reaching even the bottom of her liver and kidneys. Tears flowed from her beautiful eyes, and she wanted to cry and scream at him in protest and objection, but somehow she hid her pain and was able to control herself and did not want to reveal the state of her broken heart in public to all the miserable men. Women and children gathered around her like a mob. Most of them thought she was a movie star who came out of the silver screen and miraculously appeared in the middle of their poor huts. The supposedly beautiful film actress Rayhana Khan lowered her face to hide her tears, then turned her head and body and began to walk away, while stray dogs and emaciated children followed her as if they were her entourage of admirers.